I'll hold up this side.
But then you can run around there.
I could bounce around, couldn't I?
I'll hold this side up.
It takes, just so you know,
Broad
in
shoulder.
order to pass anything, it takes 4 yes votes.
I'm the golden.
3-1.
Half that. Right. Okay.
Well, I've been there before.
I think we're.
Somebody will, when it comes up there. I'll read what we're reading. Check the extra to have your glasses delivered to the
Well, that's
meeting.
my daughter-in-law, so maybe she does. She'll get billed for it.
Blueberry good.
I gotta get it.
Your feet.
Yeah, really. I
Hey,
gotta
we're
get
twins.
Noblesville somehow.
See, she disowned me already. That's not cleaning that reason.
Who made the offer on the theater?
Next also.
I saw on Facebook. Seriously?
I believe so. Could be the guy next to me. It's one of those two.
Everyone rise, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, thank you that we can come before you tonight, and we pray that you'll give us the wisdom and the ability to conduct the business of the city of Newcastle. We thank you for the many blessings you've given us, and we ask you to protect and prosper our city in Jesus' name. Amen.
City Council meeting Monday, August 19th, 2019 comes to order. Roll call, please.
Mary Brenton, Jeff Hancock, Jerry Walden.
Oh, here.
Mark Koger.
Here.
Lynn Purdue.
Present.
Rex Beckenhall.
Here.
You guys put the pressure on me. I brought
Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes from the former meeting?
accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Mark Koger.
Aye.
Lynn Purdue.
Aye.
Rex Beckenhall.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Mr. President, I turn this meeting over to you.
Thanks, Mayor. First on the agenda, we have a resolution, 2019-1, resolution of the city, Newcastle allocating the funds contingent upon the city of Newcastle as a stellar community. Whereas the area identified as the city of Newcastle, town of Knightstown, and Henry County is in need of revitalization, whereas a stellar community regional development plan has been developed for the city of Newcastle, town of Knightstown, and Henry County. Whereas the plan supports the goals of the City of Newcastle Comprehensive Plan, including but not limited to revitalization downtown area of the downtown area, preservation of historic resources, production of affordable housing, promotion of economic development, park expansion, road construction, and public safety enhancements. Whereas the plan includes implementation measures, and whereas includes an assessment of the existing physical structures and infrastructure, and whereas community input was utilized during the development of the plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Newcastle hereby adopts the Stellar Community Regional Development Plan for the City of Newcastle. And therefore be it further resolved that the city is hereby authorized to apply for the Stellar Community designation and receive funding subsequent to this designation from the Indiana State Health Department, Indiana Department of Transportation, and Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, and Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, and Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs. Published policies, procedures, and regulations as amended from time to time. Now therefore be resolved that Mayor Greg York is hereby authorized and empowered and directed to execute, acknowledge, and deliver in the city's name and on its behalf in all applications, award agreements, documents, instruments, or writings as necessary and or appropriate to consummate the stellar community application and receipt of any subsequent funding. I make a motion that we accept this resolution.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other questions or comments? First of all, I will say thank you. I know you guys put a lot of time into the meetings and different events for it. But I want this to be something that the whole community's behind, and appreciate all the efforts that you guys put into it so far. Roll call vote, please.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Mark Covert.
Aye.
Glenn Purdue.
Aye.
Rex Spector.
Motion carries 4-0.
Next, we have a third reading of ordinance 3807, amending zoning districts in the Northfield Park. Again, this was on April 29th when Jeff Schmiley requested the Newcastle Plan Commission consider the amendment.
I move we pass 3807.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Mark Covert.
Aye.
Glenn Purdue.
Aye.
Rex Spector.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
And next is a first reading of ordinance 3809, an ordinance approving an additional appropriation of funds not previously budgeted. Whereas the Common Council of the City of Newcastle passed an annual budget for fiscal year 2019 on the 15th day of October 2018, which was ordinance 3789, where it has been shown that certain additional funds have now been received that were not previously appropriated and are needed for the certain governmental purposes, and those funds are now available to the city from MV&H Restricted 203 and LRNS 202 funds proceeds. And whereas the monies received from MV&H Restricted 203 and LRS fund proceeds have been deposited in the city's general fund, and the accounts 203 and 202 have not been appropriated for any purpose. Now therefore be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Newcastle that certain funds not previously appropriated in the city's 2019 budget are hereby approved for the expenditure in 2019 as an additional appropriation. Said additional appropriations is in the sum of $200,000 from MV&H Restricted 203 and $250,000 from LRNS. And shall be set aside in appropriation line 332, the City MV&H Restricted Fund 203 and LRS Fund 202. In making this appropriation is the understanding of the Common Council that said proceeds will be used for the following purposes: the community crossing grant matching and the striping of new paved roads. I move that we accept 3809.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Mark Covert.
Aye.
Glenn Purdue.
Aye.
Rex Spector.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
That concludes ordinances, resolutions. We'll go to committee reports. Turn the floor over to Jerry.
First of all, I want to thank Lee and the street department for taking care of a couple of issues that I brought forward to him. People in those neighborhoods really appreciate Lee, like I was telling you before the meeting here. Also had a nice little meeting at the EMS building the other day with Josh, with Councilman Pepe Paul. It's very active there now. High school students are taking courses there, morning and afternoon. Adult courses are taking place. And it's amazing when you walk in there how much space is actually in the area. And as you go from one area to the other, I'm just really excited about what Josh's plans are with the facility, and it's going to not only benefit our community, it's going to benefit our state, and it's going to benefit states surrounding Indiana with some specialized training. So kudos to Josh, and thank you for taking time out to go through that with us. I had a discussion with Dave before the meeting here, and Kenny, I know you're aware of the building there at 23rd Street and Broad, and you've made several contacts with all that, and
Actually, I don't think we've ever got any service from those on that. He's an out-of-state buyer.
yeah, it, just driving by there again this morning on my way to work and thinking about all the rain we got again last night. That hole is very big.
Yeah.
You can see the roofing starting to dip in between the rafters now, and it looks like the front wall is starting to move a little bit. And Dave, do you want to explain to everyone what you explained to me about the process? Because I didn't fully understand either, so.
It's not unique to Newcastle. This is
Right.
what all communities in Indiana have to go through. And I kind of explained it before. All we can do, we can cite owners for building code violations, and we can have even our court declare the properties to be demolished. We can, and then we'll get an order from the court. If they won't demolish it within a certain length of time, we can get an order from the court allowing us to go on the property, tear it down, and then get a judgment against them for the cost of demolition. That's all great, but we have to come up with the money to tear it down. And most often, and it's a rare case when this, I don't even know if we've ever had a case where the owner of the building has assets which we can go after. Most of these owners are either out of town and we have no jurisdiction to get them into court as far as a monetary judgment, or they're just people that are judgment proof, which means our judgment will only bring us back enough money based on the value of the property. And these properties, we usually end up owning them. So we have teeth. We can get the building down, but it's going to probably cost the taxpayer the cost of demolition, and we'll end up owning the property. Now, sometimes that's good. I think in the end, you take one property we did that with and we now own that you hope that we'll get our money back is where the porthole was. That's on a corner. You would think that that would have enough value that it would produce a buyer that would pay back the cost of demolition. We have a lot of in fact, you may have seen the ad in the paper recently where we're going to be selling some individual lots. All those lots, well, that's our end result is to sell. We have some steps to go through by state law, but all those lots have an assessed value of well below $15,000. So we'll offer them to adjacent property owners and see if we can get people who want them. But probably those lots will not produce enough to pay for the cost of what it was to demolish them. So we're not talking about properties that have great value generally. We're talking about owners that may be out of state or they're judgment proof. Doesn't mean we can't get the building down. It just means that in the end, we're probably going to get stuck with the cost of doing that. And that's not unique to us. That's everywhere.
Dave, is there anything that can be done from a law standpoint in terms of adding a new law, creating a new law to add some sense of responsibility to these out-of-state buyers?
There are laws that have that. Again, yes, I can get you a judgment that says these people have to pay it. But if they're judgment proof or we can't get them into court to examine them as to their assets and debts, which we have no personal jurisdiction over somebody who's out of state. We do have I know it's confusing. We have jurisdiction over the property because it's here. But if you're not here, we have no jurisdiction over you. So personally, we do have, if you live here, we can get jurisdiction over you, but those, like I say, chances are these people that own these lots and these properties don't have anything, so you're left.
Seems like a common problem that is everywhere. As you
Yeah.
say, it's everywhere.
It's
Every meeting I
statewide.
go to, communities are dealing with it too. Why are these properties sold to out-of-state folks?
Well, because you'd have to ask the auditor who sells, most of them are sold at tax sale. But if you own a property, let's say it's not sold at tax sale, you own a property and somebody wants to buy it from you and they're from out of state, you could sell it to them. In tax sales, if they meet the requirements and are the high bidder, they have to sell it to them. the state law on tax sales does not limit it to people who live in the community. Now, that's one reason we've set up the land bank. Hopefully, when we get that up and running, if we get it, it'll have to be financed, which right now it isn't. But if it gets financed, this land bank could go in and bid on these properties and acquire them. But then, if they have buildings like this on them, they probably wouldn't. Because the cost of tearing this building down is going to far exceed the value of the property. So, that's what you get to. And that's not a good answer to you. It's the answer, but it's not a good solution to the problem.
Daryl, you might want to, I'll put this out, you might want to come to a housing committee meeting tomorrow at 1:30 at the library. Because we're going to try to do something to put forward to the online sales. Put
How
it
long does your
together.
meeting usually
It's
last?
about an hour.
That's right at deadline time. I would have to be late,
Okay.
but I might drop in.
Okay. And it may matter, it may not matter, but we're going to try.
I mean,
Probably the same, Dave, probably the same thing with ordinances. There aren't any ordinance updates that we could do that make any difference in this
You're
situation.
stuck with the basic problem of collecting a judgment. In the end, the final analysis, you can't get blood out of a turnip. It's just like if you sued somebody, if they have no money and no insurance, you're not gonna get anything from that lawsuit. And
So what would happen if that building were to fall down on its own? Would the owner be liable? Does he have to have some sort of insurance
in
on it?
theory, the owner would be liable, but if the owner had no insurance and was judgment-proof, the person that was hurt would probably get nothing.
And we'd probably still have to clean it up.
And we'd have to
Clean it up when we're
Clean it up.
It's like collect back. You're even.
Fire department might need some practice buildings.
But we'll do our best. We'll see what we can get. I don't think we've tried to cite these people in yet, have we?
We'll pull the folder, yeah, well, yeah, I believe we have.
Yeah.
I'll pull the folder tomorrow, I'll have Janet pull it.
Kenny's tried,
And the problem
and
is you
it's
gotta
gotta
get-
be frustrating for him.
Even this action would require us to get service on the people too.
That's the problem.
And it's hard to get service on these people.
On
So,
in a situation with a building that's unsafe enough that they've gotten 2 or 3 letters from the building inspector and they've not responded, if somebody were hurt, couldn't they be held criminally?
You'd have to talk to the prosecutor. I can't answer that. But you made a statement that's part of the problem here is we can't prove that they got the letters.
Oh,
So it's a frustrating effort. Like I say, it's not unique to us. Every time I go to a meeting of city attorneys, public lawyers, the issue of code enforcement is always a major issue because it is a frustrating, never-ending job that has very few good solutions.
All right. Dave, I appreciate you getting that information out to us.
But we'll keep at it.
Okay, all right.
And we do have success stories. Like I say, we got the porthole down, and we'll keep working at it.
Okay, all right, that's all.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The only thing I have is Lee or whoever, need 2 speed limit signs, 30-mile-an-hour signs on, I guess it would be Riley Road or 200 South between State Road 3 and Spice on Pike, one each way. Doesn't really matter where, just as long as we get one going each way. Again, from State Road 3 to Spice on Pike on Riley Road or 200 South, whatever you call that. That's all.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Just one question, because last meeting, we talked about the castle, and the paper had in there that the city and Main Street had made an offer, and you said the city did not make an offer, you did not make an offer, that Main Street made the offer. Well, the director of Main Street and the board of Main Street have all told me that they did not have any
Here's the
skin in the
deal.
game there.
A year ago, I 12 businesses lined up. We made an offer to that company that 12 people was gonna pay $500 a month rent for that, just individual businesses. For us to turn the air on, turn the electric on, the AC, to maintain it. So what happened, wouldn't happen? I had an individual at the last meeting that was sitting in this room that had said that they would financially take care of fixing the marquee. I had an individual that said that they'll donate $75,000 to any organization to buy that. Well, everybody's whined, moaned, cried, complained about Main Street. I'll tell you what, if $75,000 would buy that, I would give it to Breakfast Optimist before I'd give it to Main Street, just because all the whine, crying babies that are talking about things they know nothing about. So I have an individual that was gonna front $75,000 to somebody. So there's your story. If you want to know more about more individuals.
Well, I just was thinking, I mean, you know, I just don't know how you can make an offer in the name of the city of Newcastle when it's not, you know, before it's been brought before the council and things like that. And you clearly said that Main Street made the offer, which was disappointing to me. I mean, you could have told us this 2 weeks ago. It's just disappointing.
You didn't ask.
We sure did. We did. We asked if Main Street made the
You didn't ask
offer.
before that meeting.
We asked during that
I would explain it to
meeting.
you before the meeting if you would have asked.
But you wouldn't answer the question during the meeting? In a public meeting, you wouldn't simply say,
There's a lot more details that I can give you now. If you want more details, I can give you
I don't need more details. I'd just like you to tell the truth. Just tell the truth.
I've told the
You
truth.
didn't tell the truth last meeting. You didn't tell the truth last meeting. They asked you, was Main Street part of that offer, and did the city make that offer? You said the city did not make the offer. You said Main Street made the offer. Main Street did not make the offer. Okay? And I don't know why you've got to say things that aren't true. I don't know why. Just tell us the truth in the meeting whenever that happens, and we'll be fine. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Carrie knew that I made that offer before I made the offer.
Carrie didn't, that it wasn't from Main Street just because she knew. Yeah.
But it was quoted in the paper that said you made the offer, and the tape plainly states your voice saying that the city of Newcastle is making the offer. So that's where we're coming from.
Does a lot with EDC, and I say we. The chamber does a lot for the city, and I say we, thinking that we're all one and all working together. So when I use we, I thought that we all have the same goal, to save the council.
I think we
But
do
I
have a
guess
lot
we
of
don't.
goals, but we as a council sit here and have to make financial decisions. And we as a council, I'm pretty sure, do not want the responsibility of owning the Castle Theater.
Then, I agree.
Okay.
Breakfast Optimist may own it next.
I hope they do.
But I just want you in the future to just tell the truth.
Well, I've told
You didn't tell the truth.
I've told you way in the future, if you want information before you get to the meeting, just let me know. Just ask me.
It was brought up in discussion. And there's no reason you can't answer a question in a meeting with the truth.
Well,
There's no reason you cannot answer a question in a meeting with the truth. Okay, I mean, is there any
I did
reason?
answer with the truth.
No, you didn't. You said that Main Street made the offer. You didn't make the offer for the city. So somewhere along the line, somebody is not telling the truth. And I'd just like to have the truth told. You know, that's all I ask. That's all I got to say. You know, I don't expect it to get any better, but I just wanted to voice my opinion. So,
Fine. Anything else?
no.
Chief?
No.
Chief? Chief? Kim? Counselor? Kendra? Doug? Okay. Anyone from the public wishing to come forward this evening? Come ahead. State your name and your contact, please.
With your permission, I'd like to hand out flyers.
What is it? She's the one that she's already made a presentation to us, right? Is this,
I'm not sure. Have she been in or not?
Yes, I think she was,
I know that they, Connersville City Council and Mayor has pledged $2,000
No.
to start.
different thing. Yeah, I was thinking it was the signs. Yeah, it's a
This
different
is-
thing. Yeah, it's a different thing.
I'm William Huber, and I'm a school bus driver for Newcastle Community Schools. Also, I'm a deputy grand knight at the local Knights of Columbus. And that's how I found out that Connersville has started raising funds for one of these baby boxes. And the city council and mayor reportedly put in $2,000. And the Knights of Columbus is going around to all the other service organizations and churches and raising the rest of the $10,000. I talked to Chief Boatwright about it, and he seemed to be favorable to it. It's actually an instrument of peace. It's, we hear so much about violence and everything. The state law allows a troubled mother to give up her parental rights to her newborn child less than 30 days old. And, but she has to do it as it is now, face to face. And a troubled mother, like she's still in high school and she's having problems at home because she has a baby, most of the time she's not gonna do that. She's not gonna walk into a firehouse or EMS station face to face and hand over the child and give up her parental rights. And so the purpose of the Safe Haven Baby Box is so that she can do it anonymously. She takes the baby, turns the handle, opens the door, places the baby in the box. That causes a silent alarm. Then when she closes the box, there's another alarm that goes to dispatch and in the firehouse if it's installed in the firehouse. And at that time, the firefighter takes the baby out, make sure it's not in distress. Then dispatch will send EMS to take the baby to the hospital. Then DCS is informed from the hospital, and DCS informs CPS to take custody of the baby, and then the mother's parental rights have been relinquished. And they tell me that there are people out there lined up yearning for a baby to raise. They don't care what color it is. They don't care if it has 10 fingers and 10 toes. And so what we're willing to do is if the council will okay it and get the site surveyed and maybe do a little bit better than Connersville's $2,000 to get started. There's an annual fee of $200 that covers all the maintenance, recertification, audits of the records, and everything. And that's an annual charge that EMS probably just put it in their budget. But the $10,000, I'm willing to go to the other service organizations and churches, and Tri-Kappa has shown some interest in it. The pastor at the First Baptist Church is interested in helping. And so, like I say, it's peace for the mother. She doesn't have to worry about somebody chasing after her. The baby gets medical care, food, nourishment, and a home to grow up in. And the first responders don't have to respond to a baby freezing to death on the doorstep. Detectives don't have to go out and find the parents, and the prosecuting attorney doesn't have to prosecute. The sheriff doesn't have to lock them up. So, any questions, anybody?
We would assist the safe haven, I mean, if there was the foundation, or who actually would this money go to, are you asking us to be that entity to
No.
start this foundation, this fundraiser, or?
No, we have to have approval from the city to install the box. We have to have approval from the city to have it maintained on your property. The maintenance people will have to come from time to time.
Is there any additional liability to that?
I have no idea, Mayor, there would have to be, yes, there would be liability to make sure that box was designed in accordance with whatever standards they were.
Well, the baby box is already designed.
Okay.
It's climate controlled. And like I said, it hooks into the dispatch system that's already in place.
All I'm saying is, there would be liability. I mean, you'd have to make sure that the right box was used, that it was set up right, that it was maintained properly, that your people responded promptly.
I see Michigan City mentioned in here. What, and I think it says that there are 11 in Indiana now, or so, where else in Indiana besides Michigan
Seymour.
City?
Seymour has one. There was a new one, I can't remember the name of the town, but it's right on the Illinois border. And Illinois does not have the same haven law like we do. And so people have come across the state line already. It's just been activated, and they've left babies in there.
William, what's the timeline on this, start to finish? Do you have any idea?
I don't have any idea. I know if 1,000 people give me $10,000, that's $10. I think it'll go pretty quick. I haven't talked to the people in Connersville for a couple of weeks, but they were doing pretty good the last time I talked to them. The funds will actually go to Safe Haven Baby Box Incorporated. It's a nonprofit.
Like, for the
Is
people
that
started in
through you?
Newcastle, I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't want to pay $5,000 and it go to Connersville.
Oh, no.
I wanna make sure that it stays in Newcastle.
If you write a check to Safe Haven Baby Box and you put on the check that is for Newcastle, it will go towards Newcastle's Safe Haven Baby Box. Don't give me the money, give it to them. Make sure it's got Newcastle, Indiana on it. So you don't want it to go to Newcastle, Delaware. And so at the end, we'll get a report of all the donors.
So
Individuals can go online and make a donation, but they have to specify the city.
Now, is this going through your organization, or
Doesn't go to
this
my
just you as an individual, you're trying to head this up?
Oh, yeah, the other nights will probably help me with it, but, we're gonna go to the other service organizations, the Elks, Boots, the Masons, whoever we can get interested in it. I envision this as a community project, not a Catholic project or Knights of Columbus project. It's a community project.
Now, you mentioned where, in Newcastle, where do you feel is the right place to have this baby box? And then I think you
Well-
mentioned talking to Chief Boatwright, and I want to get his thoughts on this when you're done.
Okay. I mentioned I'm a school bus driver. My district is Indiana Avenue over to Bundy and Main and down 15th Street. Most of those people that live in my district don't have cars. So Chief Boatwright has engine one, they can walk. If you go up Indiana Avenue at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 to 8, you'll see them walking down with their RVs and McDonald's uniforms on. And so they don't have cars, and so they can't get anywhere. But originally, some of the people in my organization argued that if there's gonna be one in Connersville, we don't need one. Well, yeah, we do need one, because a troubled young mother won't be able to, well, or father, for that matter. But research has shown that fathers are more likely to hand it over face to face, where mothers require anonymity. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then Chief, do you have an opinion on?
It's gonna hurt.
Yeah, well, when I talked to him, I wanted to find out the legalities and everything, but, I mean, if we installed one, it'd have to be either EMS or fire.
Right, okay.
I mean, because we're there
Sure.
24 hours, so somebody would have access to it,
Mhm.
that bell went off, so. that'd be the
Well,
two options.
okay, I'd like to make a motion that we allow him to go about raising the money, and that the city allow this, providing our council comes back and says, everything is okay. City allows you to put that in Fire Station 1 or at Fire Station 1, and that we as a city, out of Riverboat each year, provide $200 to maintain the box. So that's my motion.
Okay, would we feel more comfortable if the money was turned into the clerk's office? Do you have are you going to a bank and saying the money's deposited in a certain bank to this account, or is the money gonna be turned into like our clerk's office until we get to that $10,000?
No, you have to pay it through Safe Haven.
Yeah,
You have to go
that was
online.
my suggestion, is that the Knights of Columbus open a checking account.
Oh, okay,
Or
well,
whatever, but then it becomes the Knights of Columbus project.
What you might do is go to the community foundation and start a pass-through account,
Right.
which you probably can do for this, since it's gonna be $10,000.
But it's.
Which is
the money
probably the
has to be
easiest.
Turned over to Safe Haven Baby Box.
Well, they
Eventually.
will, yeah, if you
They
go down, you talk to them at the foundation, they will create a pass-through account. It will be Safe Haven Baby Box pass-through account, and then when you've collected the $10,000, they'll cut a check and send it to Safe Haven. They're incredibly good with all
That's the
that.
best way to do it, William, really.
And people will feel,
Community Foundation. that's
yeah,
on
down right,
Elliott.
yeah, off of Elliott down there, and people will feel, they'll feel good about giving to this, but they will feel safe and secure about giving it through the foundation. That's what I would suggest. Now, I'm not putting that as part of my motion, but that's,
For the city to do it, you'd have to pass an ordinance setting up a non-reverting fund. It would
Right.
be much easier to do it through the foundation or something like that.
okay, so, anyway, there's my motion, if anybody wants to second it.
I'll second it, Rex.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Jerry Walden,
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Gover.
That was an aye.
Aye,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, Lynn Purdue,
Aye.
Rex Beckman.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
We gotta have you speak up tonight, man.
Sorry.
With only four here, you can't.
Any other citizens wishing to come before the council this evening? Go ahead.
Sean Defoe with the Chamber of Commerce. Just a couple of things. First, September 7th is a cash bonanza, it's our biggest fundraiser event. Tickets are a measly $100, and I encourage everyone, if they desire to try to win, to buy more tickets than just one. But nonetheless, if you'd like to buy one, you can come see the office and purchase it. Also, though, I do have a brief anecdotal tale to share with the council and with the mayor. As you may be aware, that a new business opened up where Shelley's Bakery was at today. The lady there, her name's Michelle, it's called Legends Nutrition NC. And she shared with me that one of the things that drawn her to Newcastle was that she saw Mayor York working out in the 1400 Plaza, and she said any city that has a mayor working like that is a city for her to be in. So, kudos to that. So, she will be having a ribbon cutting ceremony eventually. There is one on September 5th, a ribbon cutting ceremony at 4 p.m. at Russ Hubler. 4 to 6 p.m. The whole city and everybody's invited to be there. So please mark that on your calendars.
Say that date again.
September 5th. It's Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m.
Okay. Thank you. Any other citizens wishing to come before the council?
Kevin Gray, Henry County Council. Just came from, I think, the 25th Stellar meeting that we've had since late April. And one of the things we discussed is we're probably going to be asking many of you in this room to write a letter of support for our Stellar initiative when it goes into the Okra on September the 20th. The mayor, some council members, probably some of you gentlemen who oversee EMS, fire, and the police department. So if you get something from one of the Stellar committee chairs, please give it consideration. We'll come up with some sample templates for you to look at and make it your own. Last year, Hancock County, Greenfield, Fortville was one of the two winners, in addition to a couple of communities in Allen County. And each of those had about 25 to 30 letters of support from organizations such as the foundation, but also city leaders. In our case, it'd be Newcastle and Knightstown, in addition to county leaders. So if you see that coming, I think we're going to have to set the deadline around September the 7th, but you'll be getting that information within the next week. So if you would take that under consideration, we'd greatly appreciate it. And thank you for passing that ordinance. We'll be doing that as a county this Thursday at our council meeting Thursdays.
Are they going to be sending those out each individually?
I was supposed to contact you, and I thought you have a council meeting. I would verbally contact you tonight, and you'll probably be getting something either in email or in the mail over the next few days. We're working on the template tonight. So expect it in probably by Friday. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens wishing to come before the council this evening?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Mike's going to come up before me.